Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this session we are taking a look at a post that was put up by a Redshell, it looks like, and this is a post about Lucio and Lucio needing buffs. So I haven't read this post yet, I'm going to read it with you guys, and then I'm going to react, give you my thoughts as a person of the scene, as a former contenders coach, all those things. And I'll also be interested in hearing your thoughts. If you're enjoying the content, please do drop a like and consider subscribing. So, let's go through here and let's see what Redshell has to say. Lucio has progressively suffered from power creep. My name is Redshell. I'm a known top 500 Lucio one trick, and I figured out I might give this a try because Lucio desperately needs some sort of buff. He's the weakest support in the game without counting Moira. Okay, well that's a little bit of a cop out in the first place because he's the weakest support in the game without considering Moira. So do you mean he's the weakest main support? I'm not even convinced that he's that. If we look at Overwatch and we look at the support heroes, I'm already going to object a little bit to this thought because he's the weakest support in the game, but not if we count Moira, who's worse. Let's get a different color for that. So maybe he's the weakest main support in the game, but honestly, if we look at how the main supports work, we're in a situation the main supports, for those who don't know, in professional play would be Brig, Lucio, and Mercy, and Lucio gets played in brawl comps. Almost full stop. Occasionally you'll mix a Brig into a brawl comp, but Lucio is your primary main support for brawl comps, and Brig is your primary main support for other comps right now. She gets used both in dive comps, in most forms of hybrid comps, and in poke comps. Now she's hybridizing poke comps themselves by existing in them, and Mercy is the better poke hero. She damage boosts, she reses. Mercy is the better hero in terms of her kit is better designed for poke, but Brig is enough total value and shuts down dive heroes, solidly weakens the strength of dive, which is what poke is weak to, in a way that tends to make her more interesting and more useful to most poke comps most of the time than Mercy would be. Or if you're running a poke comp, you run Bat plus Zen, which would really be a double flex support combination. But Mercy doesn't get run professionally very often, except with Pharah sometimes. Let me rephrase that. Pharah, so when Pharah's run, and sometimes Echo. But Brig is pretty good at supporting Echo too. Not as good as Mercy, but pretty good. So looking at this from a professional organized play standpoint, I'm kind of not buying the argument. Moira's just worse, and everyone agrees that that's true. She just doesn't really make sense. Lucio gets played in brawl comps, in brawl poke hybrid comps, in dive brawl hybrid comps. So that would be like a Ryan McCree comp would be a brawl poke hybrid. A Winston Diva Reaper comp would be a dive brawl hybrid. Those would both be comps that we've seen over the last year or so and seen quite a bit of. And Lucio gets run in both of those. Whereas Mercy really only gets run if you're running a Pharah. And that's basically it right now. So I'm not totally sure I can get on board with that one. But I want to go back to it. From an individual play standpoint, I definitely think there's something to be said, and I obviously don't think that the entire argument that Redshell is going to make is garbage, or the argument I expect to see, I don't think is garbage, but I just want to sort of lay that as a ground set of wait a second, there's people in worse shape than Lucio. To be fair, Moira is such a low bar, it's not fair to counter. Maybe. Okay. Let's continue through here. The biggest issue that I have is that Overwatch has progressively buffed DPS supports tanks so much, while Lucio has stayed exactly the same for 4 years. I mean, tanks have mostly just gotten through a round of nerfs. Rein, yes, got some buffs, but then got some of that taken away from him. Ball just had his grapple nerf applied to him. Sigma had the shield super nerfed, and then the cooldown on it brought back part way, so ultimately Sigma's recently been nerfed. I don't really know that the tanks have had a ton of buffs lately. That's not really accurate, but okay. We're talking over 4 years, though. Well, Lucio's stayed exactly the same from 4 years with barely any changes. Has it really been 4 years since we did the major rework to Lucio? For those that aren't aware, and it's quite possible it has been, Lucio's aura used to basically be map wide. It wasn't map wide, but his aura used to basically be map wide, point wide in terms of like all of A, not just the point that you'd stand on to check, but like the whole zone that you'd think of as point A on something like Eichenwald. It was basically that big, and Lucio had a ton of power in his kit through his aura, covering so much space. It would have allowed Lucio to be more useful to things that weren't wanting to stack together, to things that weren't Talon Dive, effectively. That got taken away from him. In exchange, he got faster wall riding. I believe he got more power in his weapon. He got a fair bit of individual compensation to make him individually more powerful in exchange for having his aura shrunk significantly to be more like that, where, hey, it'll affect people who are relatively close to him. But again, he got power changes like wall ride speed to make up for that, to make him individually more powerful. And if that was 4 years ago, that's fine. Okay. It's hard to duel people as the duel support because everything does so much damage and your heal is barely noticeable. Is he really the duel support now, or is that Brig? Heck, Soldier now does 20 damage per bullet, which is literally the same as Lucio's weapon. The character does the same damage while being straight up hit scan and having 3 times the fire rate. But nowhere near the mobility. To be fair, nowhere near the mobility. Legs does have some legs, but he doesn't have roller skates. He also full commits. If Soldier wants to heal himself with his heal station, he's dropping his heal station in that spot. Whereas Lucio can go, I can heal, I can change my mind in speed, I can go back to heal. It's not nearly as committal. Now, Amp is a commit, but Amp is a commit that, it does a little bit of a different thing. His boop has gotten progressively worse because Blizzard keeps buffing movement in the air. That's fair, yeah. Getting environmental limbs nowadays is borderline impossible. Well, let's not kid ourselves. It's not borderline impossible, but yes, it's harder than it used to be. Now a question that a lot of people ask. Is he so bad? If he is so bad, then how come AL players play him? Or how come there are so many Lucio one-tricks? Excellent, excellent. I'm glad he's covering my objection that I already made, which I'm doing somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but the objection that I already made to, hey, in organized play, he sees more use than Mercy, he's better than Moira, that sort of thing. The only thing Lucio has that makes him strong is the speed aura. Well known. Obviously, it's impossible to balance because speed is so overpowered in a game of rotations. And yet not so overpowered that we generally run him. We don't generally run Lucio to protect our Zen, to protect our Ana, things like that. We instead run a Brig. Like, rotations are valuable, but Brawl is considered less threatening than Dive in some ways, and because of that, you tend to run supports that protect against Dive Brig as opposed to the support that protects against Brawl by answering rotations and letting you kite for longer as your secondary support here. Okay, let's go back here. So I'm just not convinced I'd say game of rotations here, but that's okay. In solo queue, he is very useless because there is a lack of coordination, that and the fact that Brigitte is just a better version of Lucio. Same aura, but bigger. They're kind of different, but okay. Arguably better ult. She does have a better ult. It's unfortunate, but she does. And targeted healing, all that while Lucio Beat takes forever to build. Sure, Lucio Beat taking forever to build is absolutely a fair criticism. That said, you can build it a fair bit faster if your weapon play is good. Like, Lucio's Beat takes too long to build, full stop. But Lucio's Beat doesn't take as long to build as a lot of people think, because a lot of people just don't have very good Lucio weapon play, because Lucio's weapon play is really hard compared to a lot of heroes. That said, Redshell knows how to do Lucio weapon play. And even with good weapon play, his ult probably takes too long to build. It's so bad that his only good playstyle is Reddit or flanking Lucio. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I'll let it go for a moment. So what type of buffs do I suggest? No, I won't let it go for a moment if we're going to move on. So the thing about Lucio is not like, oh, I am the best in the world at this thing. Lucio is not, I am the best at the world at assassinating people in the back line. No, we can look at that, That's not the thing that he's the best with the world at. I am the best in the world at enabling my off-angling poke DPS. So off-angle enable. No, that's not the thing he's the best in the world at. I am the best in the world at protecting my allies from getting pinned by Reinhardt. No, he's not the best in the world. Or more generally, I am the best in the world at, fixing allies' mistakes for very short burst windows. No, that's something, and I'll go into examples of these. This, assassination thing, no, someone like Tracer is going to be better than him at this. Okay, that makes sense. This off angle enabling, something like Mercy is going to be better than him at. Yeah, that makes sense. This stopping burst damage, messing up someone's big play for just a moment, heavy burst damage, messing them up, something like a Zarya bubble is going to be better than him at this. But he doesn't really have to choose. He gets to be like, let me just drop some sprinkles of effectiveness over here, and some sprinkles of effectiveness over here, and some sprinkles of effectiveness over here, and oh, I need to contest an off-angling enemy DPS, there's a Widow on high ground, there's a Soldier at an off-angle, there's a Hanzo, something like that. So again, off-angle threat, I would like a Diva for this. Maybe a Hammond for this, or a Winston. No, he's not the best at this, but Lucio can sort of fill in and do a little bit of that, and let's get some sprinkles. It's not as effective as sending a Diva, but hey, we can go send this as sort of a pinch. In a pinch, this will sort of get the job done. We have shots. Well, the thing about Lucio is, unlike Diva, who basically has to commit herself to, I'm going to go deal with that soldier, and in doing so, whoops, there's a Zarya pushing my team, and the Zarya gets grab off, that sort of thing. Lucio, yes, he actually does leave, and then he's not there to deal with the other thing, but he doesn't ever really give up that speed, that wall riding, that extreme mobility. His boop is on an incredibly short cooldown that he uses to do a lot of these things, like break up burst damage, mess up people that are, on off-angle high ground, off-angle threat, high ground, maybe we'll include there. Those things, like, he really does not take very long to go mess up that thing and come back, or to keep that person tied up if that's what he's trying to do. Obviously, there's problems with heroes like Kree, where, hey, there's a flashbang, you don't want to tie him up too much when he's off angling. Hey, yes, you can get unlucky and a Widow hits you, a Hanzo hits you with a headshot, that sort of thing. But he's got the ability to sort of be that, I'm going to go fill the gap here, I'm going to fill the gap here, and he can go, I'm going to go back and taxi someone back. He can move really, really fast, really consistently. He's much more like a Hammond in that sense. Not like a Tracer who, oh, you used your blinks, now you're out. He's much more like a Hammond, and that he can sort of be everywhere, except he's also a much smaller hitbox than Hammond, has different mobility options, doesn't have that tether cooldown, and goes, hey, I can really be everywhere, and I can apply a little bit of value here, a little bit of value there. I can sort of be the second best, the third best option to fill absolutely everything. And me going and doing one thing really doesn't take me out of being able to go do that other thing. So instead of being like, okay, I went and got a 4K this fight, and that's an amazing Lucio fight. No, that might be an amazing Tracer fight. An amazing Lucio fight would be, well, let's see, I messed up the Soldier. I messed up the Rhine pin. I hit beat, and that saved 2 lives. And I dumped the Roadhog into an environmental, off the map. Okay, well, that's an amazing Lucio fight right there. But that's something he can do. And that's the thing. He doesn't go, oh, it's an amazing Lucio fight because you sent 4 people off the edge. It's you found a bunch of different things, sometimes in different places in the fight, that you had to go do, that you had to go prevent, or you had to go enable. Okay, let's continue here, though. So what type of buffs do I suggest? I have a lot of suggested changes, and any one of them would feel great with him. 1. Buff his ult charge percent, either passively, healing, or damage. Preferably damage, so it promotes proactivity. If they buff him, it almost certainly won't be through his weapon damage, because that creates too much of a difference. It creates too much of a difference if you go, hey, better weapon play, gets you your ult even faster. Like, I don't think that's the direction that they'd go with him. I think this is probably his most likely. I'd actually approve of a buff to this. Like, I know seem like I'm making the counter arguments here, and I do that because I like seeing strong arguments, but I actually do think the buff that makes a lot of sense for Lucio is an ult charge rate buff. Probably not going to happen with his weapon damage, though, because that's sort of like the Reaper lifesteal buff, where Reaper getting a bunch of lifesteal made Reaper better at low levels and didn't really make him better at high levels, and was sort of like, well, that's the opposite of what he needed. Reaper at the time when they did that buff, or when they did the extreme version of that buff, was not good at high levels and was already good at low levels, and you don't want to do that sort of thing, like, oh, well, that doesn't really work. So I suspect if they tried to make it easier to get Lucio's beats, they'd either do it through causing healing to get him more, or through causing him to just passively get more, not through making his weapon get you ult charge even faster. Would that be the higher skill change? It absolutely would. I don't expect it would be the direction that they'd go. 2. Make Lucio's right click do more damage. Currently it does 25 damage, which is arguably nothing. Melee does 30. It's on a really short cooldown. I mean, I don't care if it does the same amount of damage as a melee. That doesn't really matter to me. But I think it's unlikely. Like, I don't think that makes a big difference. You're not going to make it do 60 damage, for example. So, eh. If you land all headshots with Lucio, you do around 160 damage. That's if you land all 4. Buff it so you can take out 200 HP targets with 4 headshots and a boop. So what would we need there? So we've got currently we do 200, or currently we do 160, and I just said no, we're not going to make his boop do 40 damage. Like, I don't think his boop is going to get up to 40 damage while being on the cooldown it's on, because again, Lucio's would be a bit of a terror at low ranks where people can't aim very well. If he was able to do 40 damage like every 4 seconds and was incredibly hard to hit while booping you around and moving you, like, people would hate him. People would absolutely hate playing against him. I don't think you're going to basically double his damage to 40 here. Could you move it up to 30? Sure. But that's still going to put you at 190. And 190 is going to mean you're still going to have to mix in, hit your headshots, hit your melee, and hit a boop, which is what you do now, and that works. We might like him to take down targets faster. Probably not going to happen, though. You could get some more pellet damage out of Lucio. And that would help fix this as well. It's just not the direction I expect them to go on fixing this, but I would not mind Lucio having more pellet damage. We have a super chat coming in from Adam in Charge, for 199, saying, lol, Redshell has super talent and you're a hater. Temporal is just jealous he has no talent. No talent, yes. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that super chat. I do appreciate that super chat. I will catch up on the rest of you in chat in just a second. Okay, in more than a moment here. We've got a little bit more to go here. Okay. Make Lucio's right-click longer cooldown while upping the effectiveness. I would totally be okay with Boop being 5 to 6 second cooldown if it had more impact as a knockback. Right now it barely does anything, plus characters like Ryan don't remotely feel affected by it. Well, we still want people to play Reinhardt. Like, most of the community wants their tank player to play Reinhardt. Wild, but they do, and Reinhardt's absolutely hated it when they were getting knocked around by everything. So that seems like an unlikely reversion while thinking about Reinhardt specifically. That said, could you make Lucio's boop have a bigger knockback if it was on a longer cooldown, or do more damage if it was on a longer cooldown? You absolutely could. But you'd sort of be moving away from the design space that is Lucio's strength that I talked about earlier in this, which is Lucio does little sprinkles all over the battlefield. Little bit of influence here, little bit of influence here, there, little bit of influence there. Lots of different things can jet around the battlefield if you know how to use his wall riding, if you know how to skate with him well. 2, if you know how to use his boops well, to get a lot of things done. And if you put the boop on a longer cooldown, that does hit into that. So he sort of becomes more direct, more obvious how to play in some ways. I don't know that that's really an improvement, though. Remove his passive self-healing debuff. He currently has a debuff that he heals himself less for no real reason. He heals less to himself than his teammates, which makes no sense why it was added in the first place. It was added in the first place because sustain in general was too strong, and it was also added in the first place because, like, it's hard to take Lucio down. That's sort of the thing. It's hard to take Lucio down. You don't want Lucio stalling points forever in gold games, silver games, plat games. You don't want Lucio being a just I can stall forever hero. You don't want Lijiang Tower Gardens just going on hour-long matches because Lucio never gets eliminated in the gold game or whatever because the only person who can hit him is your, I don't know, Winston and he went up to the sky, or your, sim turrets and he breaks those like that. You don't really want that, and that's what they're being careful to avoid, would be my expectation here. Like, remember, Redshell, you're playing in top 500 games and GM games where, yeah, it's not that big a deal if you healed yourself for literally twice as much as you do currently. But as aim falls off, the game still has to work, and Lucio really becomes a bit of a stalling nightmare. And you can see this if you go back and look at early Overwatch when you would see, wait, Lucio's stalling way longer than he should against 4 people, for example. It would also make him a fair bit stronger duelist, because when you're trying to tie up a soldier, for example, on high ground and you're Lucio, what you're doing is you're fighting him a little, breaking line of sight, letting your heals work a bit, fighting him a little, breaking line of sight, letting your heals work. You're dancing around something, and if you could dance around something and hide from this soldier for less time before recontesting him, that's a pretty powerful buff. Like, this is not nothing, and I don't think this is terribly likely. Like, I don't like the design space of Lucio heals himself less for reasons with his aura. It's kind of stupid, but I understand why it's there, and it makes other parts of the game function, and at this point it would be a pretty big power buff. So I don't think this one is likely. Or, excuse me, this one is terribly likely. 5, make his aura larger and make it so the more away it is, the less effective it is. Okay, you could do that. Why does the character, literally based around Doras, have a smaller aura than Brig? Because he's incredibly fast and because he also has roller skates. And part of the skill of Lucio is moving around to apply your aura to the people that need it. If you make his aura too big and affects the entire area like it did in the beginning, you have to make him weaker. And I don't think you necessarily want back the Lucio that did not get nearly as much acceleration when he popped off walls, the Lucio that could only stick to walls for 3 seconds without changing surfaces, Lucio that had weaker weapon play. I don't think Redshell wants that Lucio. Or even better, why give so much mobility to a character if you're going to force him to AFK near your team? It makes no sense. No, you don't need to AFK with your team. And you know that, Redshell. You absolutely do need to go do some of the Reddit plays, but you're constantly making decisions of, can I go make this Reddit play and then be back to help my Reinhardt? Can I help my Reinhardt and then go back and help my Zen? Can I move this soldier and then go back and help my Reinhardt? Can I disappear from helping my Reinhardt to knock their Reinhardt in? Can I have Lucio duels up in the sky with the other Lucio so that we can battle over who gets to knock the other team's Reinhardt in? Like, there's decision making, cost benefit analysis of, hey, I have a small aura but I'm very fast, and helping my Reinhardt generally is the most useful passive thing to do, but I can go actively do other things, but I'm taking away from this passive value. Okay. I'm not asking for all these buffs. I'm just asking for literally anything. An ult charge buff would be the most likely. The character feels like such a throw pick nowadays. Well, part of that is the meta. We're not really in a brawl meta at the level that Redshell is playing at. We're in, yes, more of a meta where Brig sees play. We are. Please, I love Lucio, but I hate how he is known as OP because one ability, he's not known as OP. And his entire kit is known to be strong, while the rest of his kit is completely useless. Lucio has never been OP. The only reason he is meta is because of Rein being meta. Yes, he is tied to Reinhardt. Lucio, at the moment, is tied to Reinhardt. More so, Rein is tied to Lucio than Lucio is tied to Reinhardt. Yeah, Rein is tied to Lucio. Lucio is not tied to Rein. I don't really think most people would have ever considered Lucio OP. Lucio has been fine for much of history. Even when Lucio was 100% pick rate, most people didn't think he was overpowered. He's sort of one of those things, and I've described this on teams before, where teams are made up of 6 heroes, in Overwatch 1 anyways, and you have, obviously, main tank, off tank or flex tank. We'll call this hit scan. We'll call this flex DPS. We'll call this main support, and we'll call this flex support. And your main support and your off tank tended to be the more defensive pieces of your team. This is not to say your Alt tank can't do a ton of damage, your Zarya can melt things, your Diva can dive and finish things, your Sigma can do a lot of damage, all those things, but defense matrix, Sigma's double defensive cooldowns between barrier and hand, Zarya being able to protect the main tank significantly with Zarya bubble, these sort of things, the peel that you offer for your team, and then same thing, the peel that you offer for your flex support in terms of, hey, we have repair packs for them, hey, maybe we have repair packs for a team, hey, we have speed to keep our flex support away from the other team, to boop out the Winston that's diving in, be it a Lucio boop or a Brig whip shot, hey, we have the healing, the healing beam to help peel. Like, these tend to be the two most defensive positions on the team most consistently that sort of make everything work. And people don't really, if they're being reasonable, complain about these positions. Now, people complained about Brig, but Brig, when people were complaining about her, was honestly more in this spot. So with good reason. And people complained about Diva when she was an absolute monstrosity, yes. But mostly, there has to be some level of, okay, there's going to be a few somewhat defensive members of the team, even if they make things unfun. Like, oh, I'm shooting at this person and they're not traveling to spawn room. That's unfun. Or I'm shooting at this person and I eliminated them and then they came alive again and that's unfun. Like, there has to be some level of those things in the game for the game to have a bit more strategic depth, to not just be, okay, well, we're just playing a standard shooter type thing. So that happened. Where exactly was I going with that? Oh, OP. Yeah, he's never really been OP, even when he had 100% pick rate, which he did for quite a while in this spot right here. Never really been considered OP by most of the community. Still wasn't considered OP. I would agree, honestly. I know I played a lot of Devil's Advocate. I would actually agree that Lucio should get buffs. It's just they should be pretty minor buffs, and they should be to his ult charge percent. I would not strengthen his aura without changing something else, because strengthening his aura on himself without changing something else is a pretty meaningful buff for his ability to duel, as well as it just makes it a nightmare for low-level players with poor aim mechanics. I don't feel any need to make his aura larger. 5 to 6 second and then more impactful for Boop is okay, but I don't see a need for that change. Like, I really don't see a need for that change, and they're not going to increase the damage without increasing that. Like, it's going to continue to be a, hey, you have to hit your shots and melee and Boop to get people, if that's what you're trying to go for there. And that's reasonable, truth be told. Again, Boop is not a very long cooldown. You're not spending a lot by going for that. So I think a buff to his ult charge, probably either through passive or healing, absolutely makes sense. I would totally be in favor of that personally. That's my views. Let's catch up on chat and see what chat's views on this are, because I am curious. And Redshell, if you're out there, I doubt you're watching the stream, but I should have responded to this. My bad. I should have responded to this post and made a thing. You know what? Let's do that now. Maybe? How long is this? Let's just go like that. Cool. There we go. So that's that. Let's catch up on chat and see what everyone in chat thinks, because we have people that have thoughts. Lucio players need buffs, not Lucio himself. I know that's Congex actually, not Blah. I just expect it to be Blah based on what it is. Blah does very much agree with that. I get what you're saying. Lucio players need buffs, but all players might need some buffs. It can be painful when you see Lucio going, they're going to sit on heal aura the whole match. They're going to glue themselves to the ground. They're not going to do anything terribly useful. Yeah, that can be super painful, but let's not pretend we haven't seen that in every role. Though, yeah, I get that you guys see it more often with Lucio. So the conclusion is Moira needs more buffs. Moira just needs to be different, but yeah. Yes, buff Mercy, but nerf Mercy's yellow beam, so I don't have to look at heal bots. That could work. The problem is, like, it's always dangerous to buff damage boost type things because it creates unintended breakpoints, makes things too powerful. So, like, that's a little challenging to go, hey, we're gonna buff Mercy. Like, where would you even buff Mercy? She doesn't really need a survivability buff. You don't really want to buff her heals to turn her into more of a heal bot. You don't really want to make res go off faster. You could reduce the cooldown on res, I suppose, but you don't want res to go off faster because you do want it to be consistently deniable when Mercy goes for bad reses. You don't want to make it so that less of the roster can deny her. I don't even know where I'd go with a Mercy buff, truth be told. Like I can, yes, tell you that she's really mostly the least played in an organized setting of the main supports, but I'm not sure what I'd do to fix that, truth be told. Like, she's actually tougher to buff than Lucio. You could make Valk a little bit better. That's probably the answer. You give Valk an extra 2 seconds of duration. That's probably the answer. Yeah, if I had to buff her, that's where I'd go. Unless you wanted to make her damage boost, like, even when she's not Valking, maybe bounce to someone else or something, but just one other person, and maybe at half power. I don't know. We'd have to see. Moira needs a changed kit if she's going to have a stronger one. That's mostly true. I mean, ultimately, you can tweak the numbers. You can double the amount of healing that she does. I don't know what that was. Okay. You can double the amount of healing that she does, and obviously she'd be stronger. You can cut the cooldown of Fade in half, and she'd be stronger. You can reduce the cooldown of her orb by another 30%, and she'd be stronger. All those things would make her stronger, and eventually she could just brute force her way into the meta. That's absolutely something you can do, even with poorly designed characters, if you just make the numbers good enough. But ultimately, she is poorly designed, and she needs a fix there if we want to have her be engaging, be meaningful, and not just be a, well, she's either going to be overpowered or broken type thing. They made speed stronger when they shrank it, right? Okay. You think you'd be okay with him getting beat a little bit faster? Jack of all trades, but master of none. Yeah, that's what he is, Semitic, and I'm in the same boat with you. Getting beat a little bit faster, getting beat 10% faster, 8% faster, totally good with me. More pellet damage would actually be nice. That would be fine. More pellet damage would be fine. Not significantly more. If you got to the point where you increased his ability to get an elimination through pellet damage plus melee or pellet damage plus boop, if you hit all of the headshots as a one-shot, that's fine with me. But I would do that through increasing the pellet damage, not through increasing the boop damage. The boot damage. Yeah, now Lucio can Goomba stomp people. He can land on them and eliminate. No. Okay. Mm-hmm. You like the idea of higher passive volt charge, so it works with speed boost and not damage related? Exactly. Hopefully mods don't strike for you for vid. They might. I don't think they will, but it's totally possible that they will. Mercy is weird because, like, I'm okay with her existing, but she is really good. But when she is really good, God, it hurts. A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. The Mercy meta was a bit painful, but remember, the Mercy meta, like, did silly things with Valk. You could do 3 reses during Valk. You could res someone, Valk, get your res back, then because it was on a 10-second cooldown when in Valk, halfway through it, get another one, and like, oh, look, I got 3 reses during Valk. Like, that was just silly, and also Valk was, what, 18 seconds at the time? Like, and she healed for more than she does now. Like, and I believe her blaster weapon was better in Valk than it is now. Like, we've done some things to bring that back in. I think we're not that close to a Mercy meta. I think giving her something like 2 more seconds of Valkyrie would be pretty safe. And the reality is she doesn't, in organized play, see a ton of value right now. It's like, oh, do you have a Pharah? Cool, I'm going to play Mercy. We have an Echo? Maybe I can argue for playing Mercy, but nope, there's a ball and a tracer on the other team. I have to go back to Brig. Like, yeah. I was thinking give her 2 stacks of GA and 2+ meters on res range. Increasing her res range could work a little. No, she doesn't get 2 stacks of GA. It's a 1.5-second cooldown. She can't have 2 stacks of GA. If Valk boost was 35 or 40%, it's not OP because it's an ult. Nah, because it's already chaining. That's so much offensive power. I'm not good with that one. Mercy brings a lot of joy to people who like to heal bot, and her kit is much better than Moira. I think she's fine. I don't particularly mind Mercy. I don't have some great need to buff Mercy. I was just using Mercy as our comparison, right? Because I went, hey, wait, Mercy exists. Why does Lucio need buffs? And if we are going to say Lucio needs buffs, we do sort of have to defend it to justify it. And okay, Moira exists, and so does Mercy. So, like, wait, no, Lucio might be in the bottom half of the support cast, but the bottom half of the support cast, I don't know that that's an argument for Lucio is where we need to pour our attention on buffs. Well, you can sort of make arguments of maybe a hero like Moira should exist for the player base, like maybe a hero like Bastion should exist for the player base, but Blizzard doesn't buy that argument apparently because they got rid of Bastion in Overwatch 2 in the format that he had that was, hey, this is something that's only going to be effective at low levels. They've tried more and more to move Reaper out of that format with some of his range buffs, with, you know, the changes that they've made to Shadow Step, things like that. So that doesn't really quite fit either. So, you know, if they're trying to move away from that design space, Moira potentially needs buffs or changes more than Lucio does. And then from a raw power standpoint, yes, there's more Mercy players than Lucio players on ladder, but when we look at like playing the game correctly, right, from an organized play standpoint, Lucio has a better argument. Like, Mercy is like, I can get away with swapping off Briggs to Mercy sometimes for specific situations until the opponents make me swap back. Huh? Like that, you know, like played with brawl comps, played with dive comps, played with poke comps, occasionally played with poke comps, but often forced back to this. Maybe not. Again, I actually think, yes, I'm probably more in favor of a reduction in Lucio's ult charge for beat than I am in favor of, say, increasing Mercy's Valk duration, but these are things that we have to justify and defend. What if Moira's heal mist lingers for a few seconds? I'd actually like to give Moira's heal mist some sort of property. Like, you could have the heal mist linger for longer. That would be a good start for her. I wouldn't mind giving it a property like damage reduction. Like, while they're in heal mist, they take 15% less damage or something like that. I'd be okay with that. More ult charge gain while wall riding for Lucio. The thing is, you already get more while wall riding, but only when you're good. Because when you're wall riding, you're going to have a better angle to hit headshots, a better angle to get shots past Rhine shields, things like that. But for lower level players, you can get less ult charge because you're going to miss more shots total than when you were on the ground. So I don't think we actually need to, like, as a factor of his kit, be like, oh, you get 5% more ult charge while you're on walls. I don't actually think we need to do that. I feel forced to Mercy when there is a Pharah. Right, and you should also feel forced to Lucio when there's a Reinhardt, but you don't. And that sort of works on ladder because your Reinhardt will frequently just get away with taking all of the healing, give them an Ana and a BAP, or a Moira and a BAP or something like that, and they'll just be like, yay, heals, I'll spend them. It's not really as good as giving them a Lucio, but on ladder it frequently is. But you could do that same solution when I have a Pharah. Okay, well, my solution to the Pharah is I'll give them a Harmony Orb, or I'll watch them with repair packs. It's really not as good as giving them a Mercy, and the hero really isn't viable enough without the Mercy. But the Reinhardt really also isn't viable enough without the Lucio, but sometimes we do it anyways with stopgap solutions. 2 stacks of GA essentially means no cooldown on GA. Exactly. You couldn't do that one. If I see Pharah refuse to sticky pocket Pharah unless they showed me they did something good. I hear you. I hear you. Well, most people play Pharah wrong when they have a pocket. They don't play her nearly aggressive enough. Yunze has gone and shown exactly how, mostly how Pharah should be played when you have a pocket. But in general, when you have a Mercy pocket, you have to play aggressively enough to earn the pocket. And if you do play aggressively enough to keep the pocket on you, that's totally fine and that's great. But if you're going to play the same places and the same positions that you'd play if you didn't have the Mercy pocket, your Mercy's going to get bored and go elsewhere, and they have to, because you're not getting enough value out of the Mercy. Like, you have to take more aggressive positioning and do more work because you have the Mercy pocket. And if you go, no, I don't want to get my Mercy eliminated, Forget that. Like, yes, you should factor in, hey, is there a safe place for my Mercy to go to? But ultimately, your first priority is you have to figure out how to get enough value because you're getting this, you know, this like, hey, I have this battery on me of extra damage, of heals if I get in trouble, that sort of thing. You have to justify it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Semitic says, I have a harder time picking my hero when I'm playing main sport. Like, I'll have the classic ladder comp of Ryan, Zarya, two poke heroes, and a Bap Anna. I mean, that works as a ladder comp. Okay. You choose on map, sure. Wait, so Echo is fine with just Harmony Orb, but Pharah needs Mercy Pocket? So Echo is actually more likely in modern comps to get some repair packs from Brig rather than your Harmony Orb, truth be told, because, Brig Zen would be a combination that you might run, and you're generally not going to be like, oh, have this. Echo's a little bit more flexible in how Echo plays. Echo can play a little more on the ground. Echo's not just getting crushed on the ground. Echo can Echo obviously still likes this guy, will use this guy, will play to angles, but Echo's greater aerial maneuverability tends to mean that, yes, she's more okay without the Mercy. She does not require Mercy the same way that Pharah does. Does she like a Mercy? Absolutely. She loves a Mercy. Okay, let's read through here a bit and see what else we've got in terms of comments here. First, we'll jump to mine to see if they. No, we just got someone clicking it. Okay, cool. Someone clicked our thing. We'll take it. Oh, and a like. Cool. Okay, so let's see what we've got in terms of comments. Okay, I would like to add this summary. To add to this summary, some serious concerns I have with Lucio in Overwatch 2. Since the last thread on this topic, I've considered the impact of global changes, which look to cripple him beyond his currently weak state. Maybe. Innate skills for each archetype do substantial harm to Lucio's value. As it stands as a secondary support, one of his primary functions is providing healing to primary supports who are by design weak at self-healing. Yeah, there's a little bit of a concern there that one of the things that your main support does is they provide peel, and one of the forms of peel is self-healing. Flex supports have mostly been designed with a weakness if they struggle to heal themselves, whereas main supports mostly don't struggle all that much. That's not totally true. Brig, if she starts to lose health and doesn't have Inspire going, has a real tough time getting Inspire going. Zen, of course, has a barrier that does automatically recharge if he's left alone for a bit. So it's not perfect. BAP has a shift that is just for him. So that paradigm has broken, that's mostly just for him. So that paradigm is mostly broken down, but that was sort of an old paradigm that we had for Flex versus main supports. Whereas Lucio can self-heal himself. Anna, if she's going to heal herself, has to spend a really big cooldown to do so, which we don't like doing. With the innate, again, that all supports are receiving, this goes away, sure. With his tiny aura, he is designed to provide close quarters benefits to a group that sticks together, yet every single statement and example given of design of Overwatch 2, be it changes, map design, 5v5, indicates you want teammates more spread out. That's how you play Overwatch 1 as well. Angles are pretty good, guys, but Lucio can get between the angles and help the different fights. He can go help rotate your McCree into position, then leave to go contest their soldier, then go back to help your Reinhardt push in on his rotation, then boop the other Reinhardt into your Reinhardt, then go back and go help your BAP get away from the Tracer that's on him. He can do all those things in the same fight. Whereas if he was old Lucio with his giant aura but slower speed, he wouldn't necessarily be able to go do all those things. He wouldn't make it around to go do all those things, but that's okay. He is designed to provide close quarter benefits to a group that sticks together, yet every single statement... Okay, you just don't understand. I would recommend Amp It Up be reworked to provide a single target range TO. No way. Of 75 to one player outside of his aura, or a speed boost to one additional target outside of aura, and give it 2 charges per 12 seconds. Well, does the aura go for 3 seconds while you're using those charges? Because if I get 2 amp it ups per 12 seconds, oh, that's going to be amazing. And engage with amp and disengage with amp, like, he'd be a must pick. If you could have 6 seconds of amp speed, he would be a must pick, even if you had to stack to get it. Like, ugh. Also agree with Redshell that he needs something offensively. Maybe. I'd really only consider upping his pellet damage. That's the only offensive thing I'd consider for him. And I wouldn't up it very much. Or a larger clip could work too. A larger clip could work too, as this person's saying. Low volume of ammo and reload are limitations that have simply not kept up with Overwatch. It's particularly frustrating to outdance the Soldier 76 or Hanzo, only have them to destroy you out of unlimited ammo. That means you were missing shots as much as they were. Like, no. If your reload is an issue, you were missing shots as much as they were. And so you're not really better than them. You're like, I'm destroying this Soldier 76 or Hanzo. And it's like, no. You have a kit that is more built around dodging. They have a kit that's less about dodging and more about damage with their shots. And you aren't hitting your shots against the character that isn't very good at dodging, and they're not hitting their shots against the character that is good at hitting against dodging, except eventually they did hit you before you chipped them down. That's on you. You were not destroying the Hanzo or the Soldier in that case. You're overestimating your own dodging skills and being like, well, they can't hit me, so they suck, but I can't hit them either, and they're an easier target to hit, even if my weapon is hard to use. No, you're patting yourself on the back too hard there, buddy. The fact that Storm Arrow refreshes faster than Lucio can cycle through ammo and reload, one-shotting, or sheer volume of ammo being much easier to hit with. Storm Arrow being stupid is something I can't agree with you on, so we'll unite on that. Lucio should be more deadly than Baptiste. What? Considering the raw healing power differential? No way. No way. If you made Lucio do as much damage as Baptiste, if that's what we mean, that would be absolutely wild. Like, that is Baptiste's value. You can tell me that Baptiste is overtuned for the support category because, hey, he effectively heals as much as Ana and has as much offensive value as Ana, though his is more in a consistent, like, his value is up here offensive-wise, whereas Ana's value is, like, here when she uses her cooldowns, then drops to here, then spikes back up to here, then goes down, that sort of thing. So they both average around here, except that Ana's having to use her abilities offensively to do that, while Bap still gets to sit on both of his abilities, and defensively then has a shift and a shift to heal himself and a lamp to save a teammate on top of it, which really isn't fair and makes him better. Again, situations matter, metas matter. That is not a full-time thing, but like, you couldn't possibly make a hero as mobile and hard to eliminate as Lucio that offensively powerful. I suppose you could. Tracer exists, but like, not while offering the utility to other teammates that he does. That no, absolutely not. Uh, mm-hmm. Okay, so that's fine. 9 likes on that. Anything else with a high like count that we want to take a look at here? 7 likes. 100% agree Lucio is one of the weaker supports, just like Genji has suffered from all the power creep in this game. Brig basically replaced Lucio. Yeah, Brig did basically replace Lucio. That's a fair complaint. Similar to how Echo has mostly replaced Genji, though Genji wasn't really getting used before that, to how Hammond in a lot of ways has replaced Winston, Bap in a lot of ways has replaced Ana. Those are all lesser, not complete degrees. There's absolutely places and reasons why you play Winston instead of Hammond. We see it in Talon Diver 6-man. There's absolutely times when you play Ana instead of Bap. She has some good synergies with Nano with some heroes. Like, it absolutely makes sense. But mostly some of these are, hey, you've kind of, in 70%, 80% of situations, replaced a hero. That's not great design space. What they need to do is revert the range nerf on his aura? Absolutely not. Literally, all he needs is a 10% decrease to his ultimate cost. Sure, you can have that. You can have a like for that. 2 likes. Let's see if we get something more here. That's 5. We'll read a 5 like comment. Why not? Why gave up on being a Lucio one trick after Goats? If Ryan isn't in the meta, Lucio just has no value in any other comp. That is his most valuable place, yes. At least not any value that Brig wouldn't have plus more. Yeah. The high sustained supports and Trash Lake Lamp also make it so hard as heck to do Reddit stuff. sort of. Like, if you eliminate someone as Lucio and then Mercy reses them, do you feel like I provided no value to my team? I don't. Like, it would be better to cancel the res too, but that's not no value to your team. If you would have eliminated someone, but Lamp comes out to save them, and then you leave safely, same thing. Consider it you got res out. They're effectively the same cooldown. You've created a huge resource advantage for your team. Couple that with the constant damage buffs to other heroes, and he can't duel half the roster consistently, especially DPS. Well, neither can Brig, guys. Like, I know we talk about, oh, Brig is better, but Brig loses to Tracer, Brig loses to Winston. You guys might be surprised to learn these things, but Brig loses those one-on-ones. She didn't in the olden days, but she absolutely does now. But it works because she's playing in a place where she'll get a Harmony Orb, she'll get an Ana Dart, and that flips it, and it's really not very hard for those supports to 2v1 a hero. And that's not wrong or weird. Like, it shouldn't be very hard. Like, it shouldn't be a situation where, hey, Lucio can just 1v1 Tracer every single time, even if the Tracer is better or they're equally skilled, that sort of thing. Like, that doesn't really work, especially because Tracer has to fight in Lucio's territory. Tracer is trying to fight where the Zen is, where the Ana is, where the BAP is, and, like, okay. Whereas Lucio gets some value by being back there. Brig gets some value by being back there. So, like, you sort of don't want a situation where, like, it's literally impossible. You just get rid of flankers if that's what you do. If Lucio becomes too good at dueling or Brig becomes too good at dueling, you effectively say, well, flankers aren't a thing that makes sense anymore, and we're only going to play ranged poke heroes. Like, you don't really want that design situation, and to avoid that design situation, you mostly do need it to be a situation where your Brig actually has to be better than your Winston to 1v1 him. Your Lucio actually has to be better than your Tracer to actually 1v1 him, and not just make it take forever for the Tracer to win the duel, make the Tracer spend a lot of resources to win the duel, that sort of thing, and preferably require the Lucio, the Brig, whatever, to still get just a little bit of help from their flex support. And that might be controversial. I might get people who go, what? No, it should be 100% even between Lucio and Tracer, or Winston and Brig, or Lucio and Genji, or whatever. And I'd be certainly interested in the arguments. I think if you create that situation, you create a situation where flankers lose a lot of value. Obviously, they still have some, because simply having multi-directional threats is important and does break up a team defensively, but still. We have a super chat from Adam in Charge for 199 saying, you forgot about who was with you in the desert. Sad. The desert. The desert, where Ana was there to educate us about camels and cheetahs and their lifespans. Thank you for that super chat, Adam. Okay. Best buff would be to lower beat charge time. Everyone agrees on that. And just finally do something about Brig and stop leaving the hero as she is for years. She's fine. Brig is not too powerful right now. She's not. Like, I don't think this is a case of, hey, these two don't get played because Brig is too powerful. Brig is still situational. Now, her situations might be more common than these two situations, which is a little bit weird, but I really don't think she's too powerful, because she has situations where her value is very, very low, and if you rock out on her on defense and the opponents aren't playing anything that gives her any value, she struggles. Like, okay, your opponents walked out on full poke, and you have a Brig in your comp. I hope you brought dive heroes for her to enable, because that's all she's going to be doing. Okay, anything else here with a huge like count? Lucio's biggest nerf has always been Brig. Yeah, that's true. A support does less damage than a damage character. Blasphemy. All while forgetting to mention, of course, Lucio's advantage in movement and sustain over soldier. Right. In that duel, so it's not the totally one-sided fight it could be. Right. Okay. I'm not seeing anything else too interesting here, so we'll go ahead and do one final catch up on chat. Okay. Reddit Lucio is probably being buffed in Overwatch 2, though. Well, maybe. Lucio is helicopter dad confirmed. Yeah, little bit. This is just Lucio trying to get buffs for Lucio by trying to sound really smart, which is my concern about these forums in general and more active participation by Blizzard in these forums. I know I've gotten heat, I've gotten pushback from some of the members of our community who are also members of the forum community very actively, some people who are very active in the forums, and I totally understand that pushback, and I'm not saying Reddit is the best thing in the world. You are definitely not going to hear me say that. But I do worry a little bit about this place where it's like the temptation to directly petition the devs when there's Blizzard employees paying attention to this is just too great, and you're going to see more posts like this, which hey, I guess means more content. Okay. We need to start a remove regen burst movement. I'm down. I'm totally down with that. How would temporal change Moira if he got to decide? I mean, I think I've already given ideas. If I really wanted to put serious thought into it, I'm sure I could. I might remove one of her abilities completely and give her something different. Uh, that's probably what I do. But if I'm not just like removing one of her abilities to give her something different, I'm probably changing how her heal works, and I'm having her mist apply. Maybe it lingers, maybe it just is a hot for longer than it currently is, but while the hot is in effect, people get something. Maybe they get 10% movement speed. Maybe they get 15% more damage done. Maybe they get 10% less damage taken. Something like that is probably where I'd look, and maybe I'd have her orb do a different thing. So maybe you could do both. Maybe it's like, hey, you take 10% less damage while the hot is in effect, and also if you're being healed by the orb, you do 15% more damage. Something like that. Like you get interesting in giving her small buffs while her heals are going. Things like that. And you could do something similar as a debuff with a right click on someone, a small debuff. I think give Moira damage orb of some kind of property other than damage, you could do the same thing with the damage orb in her right click. You could make the right click be like, okay, they move a tiny bit slower when they're being right clicked, which makes them a little bit easier for your team to deal with because they move 15% slower, 8% slower, whatever the case may be there. And you could do something similar with the orb of, hey, if they're being hit by an orb, maybe they've got lingering wall hacks on them for 3 seconds, like a Discord orb, whatever. But Lucio can boot people out of Lamp, or at least force it to be used. Right, forcing Lamp to be used is a big deal. Brig loses slowly. Right. My support hero can't 1v1 the character's designed specifically to eliminate other heroes. It's funny how that works. The problem with Moira utility orbs, though, is D.Va would essentially always keep her from being good. Not necessarily. You can use orbs on your own team for utility, but you can also hit off-angling people. Some of the best uses, really the best use for Moira's damage orb is not, there's a big group of people, so let me send it through a big group of people where it'll do lots of damage because there's going to be a D.Va there. It's instead, there's a Sombra that's farming my team from behind. You instantly get a damage orb because I'm going to make you leave. There's a Hanzo who's on an extreme off angle for the rest of his core over here. Have yourself a damage orb. Because you're a Hanzo, you're a McCree, you're whatever. I'm gonna make you leave. And as long as your orb gets there quick enough to do some damage, it doing 50 damage to him, 60 damage to him, 70 damage to him is enough to make him uncomfortable that now spam can potentially one-shot him and he plays a bit more passive. He doesn't have a D.Va to help him out. Temporal is evil. Okay. And he told me I was hard stuck and should quit. I don't think that conversation happened. And poisoned our water supply. Pretty sure that one didn't happen. I think you're having nightmares again, Adam. Okay. I say give Lucio double the passive charge gains while in Speed Aura. Maybe. that could work to encourage Lucios to be on speed more often. It's a little hard to justify any sort of like that doesn't feel like something that makes sense. Like that doesn't feel like something that should just happen or anything of the sort. Like why am I getting more ult charge while on speed? Does it speed up my ult charge gain? Okay, maybe that makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Okay. I think we'll go ahead and actually, in regards to how good supports are at dueling, do you think the design mentality of that changes with Overwatch 2? Probably not. Again, they gave DPS better movement speed. They gave them a passive of better movement speed. They gave supports a passive to self-healing, but they gave support DPS a passive of better movement speed. I think they still want DPS to be able to hunt supports. In fact, I think we might move a little bit back in that direction into a more support hunty direction than we had before. Probably not as hard in a support hunty direction as we were at the beginning of Overwatch, when release, not necessarily the beta, but actually release Overwatch until we started adding heroes like Moira and Brig. The game was very frequently played around, hey, eliminate the teams back to front, eliminate their supports. Though really, before those heroes come out, we'd started eliminating teams front to back more often. I don't think we're gonna in Overwatch 2. At least I don't think their intent will be to go back to as hard as it was then to be a Zen or an Ana, in the beginning of Dive or in the early months of Dive. But I could see us going more in that direction than we are currently. Okay, that's going to do it. If you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thanks!